Our word today is intuition. Intuition, the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. Um, I can also give you intuit, understand or work out by instinct. So origins, it's via the Latin intuere, to contemplate. Um, from in meaning upon, and then tuere to meaning to look. So like to look upon, to intuit is to look upon. Um, so the thing with the intuit, the idea of intuition to intuit is to look upon. In the central image here is the eye. Um, sight, looking vision. And what I'd really like to draw attention to is the manner in which this looking is an like a metaphor or an analogy and does not pertain to physical sight. That is the sight that you have now watching this video, the sight of a tree, a car, yeah, whatsoever these various objects of visual perception. Rather, sight in this sense is being used as an analogy for mental sight. Intuition here meaning a form of immediate understanding, immediate grasp, um, without recourse to conscious reasoning, and an immediate, that is a not mediated grasp, understanding, or uh, insight into things. Now, I mean, how can I say this? So when we see a tree, there's something immediate about that too, I suppose, in the sense that you open your eyes, you look at it, and it's there. It's given to sight in an immediate way. But the word intuition, yeah, as I'm saying, it has more to do with mental sight. Ah, I see. Meaning not literally that I see, not literally that I see in terms of my sense of sight, as in through my physical eyes I see. That is not the meaning. That rather is serving as a basis for an analogy to mental sight, sight of the mind. Insight here is a really sort of great cousin word to intuition. Okay, let's keep this idea of sight, particularly insight, intuitive sight, and I always like to point to here. I always like to point to the so-called third eye, the eye of intuition. In the Greek, it's nous. Nous could be translated to as mind, the mind's eye, the intuitive eye. And the reason I point here is because it's a non-physical, it's an incorporeal eye. It's not these two. It's not these two. It's like this, and yet it's real. It's completely real. Uh, real in the sense that it's well, like if this word intuition has any meaning or insight has any meaning, um, it's by appeal to this nous, to this mind's eye, third eye. Okay, so let me have a little look into some of the relationships this word has to other things. So what do we have? So yeah, so it goes through the Latin. It's intuition, and then it's tuor, tueor, to look or gaze at, behold, watch, view. Oh yes. Okay, so with the Latin, we have synonyms between this tuor word for, is the root for this intuition. Synonyms in Latin: video, as in this is video, visual, visually, uh, seeing again. Visio, specto, inspecto, suspicio, invisio. So like words like um so yeah, I mean video suspect means to look at, I think, in a similar uh similar manner. Invisio, invisible, etc. Um okay, intuition. This kind of inner sight, this insight. I have something from the physicist David Bohm on the on another cousin word for intuition. So we have insight, and we also have. I'm just going to quote here from Bohm, and so he's talking about scientific research. Okay, and Bohm says, thus, in scientific research, a great deal of our thinking is in terms of theories. Okay, scientific theories. And the word theory derives from the Greek theoria, and this means it has the same root as theatre in a word meaning to view or to make a spectacle. So we go to the theatre and there's a spectacle. And again, this idea of a spectacle, I think there's even a word, like another word for glasses is spectacle, or to inspect is to look at, to look, looking. A big drama is oh, it's a spectacle, something to behold, something to look at. Theatre, theory, theoria. Thus, it might be said that a theory is primarily a form of insight, i.e., i.e., a way of looking at the world, a way of looking at the world, and not a form of knowledge of how the world is. I thought that was really beautiful from Bohm. That's from Wholeness and the Implicate Order. Um, and it was a very helpful thing for me to understand, because that notion of theory via theoria to look at, it very much opens the world up to us, because we might not even necessarily you know um um subscribe to the theory, embrace the theory. We could think there's problems with the theory, um but it doesn't have to be so sort of binary of like either this theory is true or this isn't, because if we take this notion of theory as insight or as intuition, then we could think of theory as spectacles. If I have a theory about the world, I'm offering you a pair of spectacles, and then you can look at the world that way, see how that feels, see how it looks, see the way in which it organizes data, it organizes information according to certain patterns, or it brings certain things into view and takes others out of view. And yeah, I really love that. Like that a theory is a pair of spectacles. Um, because that gives us then a greater mental freedom and liberty to then look upon the world in a variety of ways. There are a variety of spectacles that we can put on, and it um it it kind of this way of looking, which I suppose itself is a theory, this sort of way of understanding theory, intuition, insight, is to say, well, okay, like I can look at the world this way, and what does that bring out for me? What values do I see that way? What meaning does that confer? What relationships does this open up? What, how do I act and how do I move and how am I with this pair of spectacles on? How's that? Is it limiting? Is it expansive, etc.? And the crucial point perhaps is to just remember that it's a pair of spectacles and you take it off again and not to forget to become identified with the theory. You say, oh, these are my eyes. No, no, it's a way of looking. It's a way of looking. It's not the only way of looking. And perhaps this sheds some interesting light upon the nature of ideology, the nature of dogmatism, etc. Because perhaps that is what dogmatism and ideology is. Maybe it's just when we forget that we are indeed wearing a pair of spectacles, we are looking in a certain way, and we've just forgotten that, like, that's a way of looking. And in that forgetting, um, we then kind of become identified with that way. That is the only way of looking. Other ways of looking are not valid. They might not even exist, the more entrenched we become in a certain theory, a certain form of insight, yeah. So the thing is to remember that we are wearing these these glasses. I think the wearing glasses thing is a nice metaphor, to be fair. Um, or just like, like we're looking in a certain way, and it's not the only way of looking. And this is a very liberating perception. Um, and it can also give us some inner freedom in terms of the way we relate to these different theories, because there are many different ways of looking at the world. And shall we say, some of them are more, allow us to see more, put it that way, you know, open more, and some of them close off. But maybe the closing off helps to give us a very specific form of insight into a very specific area of reality up close, which is fascinating and illuminating in itself. So the narrow chinks of vision can help us get to a certain kind of insight, and that may be valuable in itself. Um, but then maybe a broader form of insight helps us to see the narrowness of that and the insight that that way of looking can confer, but just to contextualize it and to understand that is a way of looking also. So I really love that from Bohm, on theory, intuition, insight, looking. I think that's sort of the gist of what I wanted to say here about intuition, insight. Yeah, I mean, this whole third eye thing is an occult notion. It's esoteric, occult meaning hidden. Esoteric meaning like I think that means like inner circle. But let's say occult, yeah. It's occult because you can't see, you can't literally see my third eye right now. You can see these. These are not hidden. These are manifest to the senses, yeah. The third eye isn't. Now you can say, like, if you're like an empiricist, I suppose, if you trust only the data, or if that theory, if your way of looking says, well, if I don't see it, it's not real, then fair enough. Like, what I'm saying about intuition and insight is a nonsense at that point. Nonsense, literally, because there is no sense. It is not manifest to the senses. What is occult or hidden? Um, sure. I mean, um, the alternative to that, which I'm trying to sort of articulate and share here, and which I think really genuinely just is there at a living core within our language, is that when we use a word like intuition or insight, which, by the way, are basic to science, as we just saw with Bohm, a theory is a form of insight. Well, without this, there is no science, there is no rationalism, there is no empiricism. These philosophical paradigms are established upon insight, intuition. What do we mean by those things? We mean looking, but principally we mean not looking in a physical sense. I mean, that might be part of it, right? Like to survey data, to look at the different forms of trees, a biologist, or to look at how different quantum phenomena are behaving for a physicist or whatever it might be. Surely there is a use, a recruitment of the senses, the empirical data. I don't deny that. But what I'm saying is that insight and intuition and theory refer to a mental sight, an insight, not an outsight, so to say, yeah, which is a way of looking. It's a way um, this data is then understood according to a broader pattern, like Bohm mentions Newton's theory of universal gravitation. Um, it's, oh, when the apple falls, it's falling according to gravity. This is a way of looking at things that fall and maybe looking at planets and maybe looking at all bodies and okay, wow, that's insightful. That's an amazing way of looking at things. But crucially, this way is an immediate uh insight, yeah, which precedes conscious reasoning. It's the basis of conscious reasoning because that insight can then be like tested empirically. We can find data to see if that supports the insight, etc. But the insight itself is a matter of perception, and this is um, a really important aspect of our um, our nature as human beings, I feel, and it's related to the idea of imagination and imagination being the the prime power of all human perception, as S.T. Coleridge said. Um, yeah, insight, intuition, theory, inner sight. For sure, there is outer sight. For sure, we use these eyes. They're incredible. The eye itself is a great wonder. Like, what to light would not be without the eye, you know. What great wonders are beheld by the eye. And so it's not to diminish physical sight by any means, but just to emphasize that when we talk about insight and intuition and theory, there is a deeper occult meaning here, and the meaning has to do with our inner sight, to the sight of the mind. Now, yeah, I think I'm gonna have to wrap this up because I think I don't want to let these reflections get too meandering. Um, and I think I've conveyed the essential point, but it's worth mentioning here Plato's analogy of the sun, his famous account of how the mind relates to the intelligible order of the world, and the principal metaphor, the principal analogy that Plato employs is light and sight. The light of the intelligible world and the sight of the mind. The mind is the inner eye, so to say, for that incorporeal light, that shining eternal light of the divine. So let me conclude there on some reflections about intuition. And thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. And if you're new to the channel and you're interested in the content, please subscribe. And I would love to hear any comments down below on your thoughts on this theme. And yeah, stay tuned for more of these Barfieldian reflections on the soul of words, where I'm taking a word from the Oxford English Dictionary, um, sharing its conventional meaning, its conventional definition, and then feeling into its etymology, feeling into its roots, and trying to let this speak to my imagination and to try and um, see by these words, see what images they evoke and what um yeah, meanings are there to be unfolded within them. Thank you once more for listening, and